Good evening. We're at the opening of Rodney Malham's retrospective, and Nadine Mitchell and myself co-curated the show, and it was perhaps one of our most challenging endeavors. We had to make at least 2 visits to his home studio, and we were both highly impressed by the diversity and the strength from which we had to choose. And we both, through feedback and our own sensibility, feel that we have made a fairly concise presentation of this remarkable man's work. While we visited his home, some pieces naturally really hands down impressed us, which we just had to have. If I may point to this one of the banana plant, of which he did several renditions. We can see historical influences in some of his work, even though he was very much his own artist, if you will. He had certain working methods in common with the French modernists, such as Matisse and Odilon Redon. He not only painted, he also was a printmaker and an excellent draftsman, of which we have examples in this show. Now, the real difficulty in presenting this show was culling out those pieces that we felt worked together. So, again, we have a fairly broad variety of this man's strengths and artistic talents. How we actually chose the work, I don't know. Nadine, would you like to fill us in on that?
Well, it was walking in and having a reaction, a connection to his work, and on several occasions we just automatically agreed. Yes, especially this piece here, it's so dynamic, and I think we agreed instantly where we envisaged it on the wall in the gallery. And so you get the first piece into place, and then it starts to flow from there. We knew Pacific Atmosphere in the back here, another very dynamic piece. That was one of your favorites.
Yes, indeed it was. Not too surprisingly, it has a very wide consensus of appreciation too. And one of the themes that he was, his last phases was pursuing was memories of his younger self, which are delightful pieces, and of which we have only one example, sadly, in this exhibition. But I noticed at least 5 of them, and they display a real celebration in the very execution. You see humor there, which comes, and my own conviction is that he was as much surprised by the results of the work as his audience was. So in that respect, it was indeed a privilege to mount this exhibition. And another thing that I think stands out was his relationship to his environment. His natural settings, they were real meditations on place. So this was important not only to him, but I think to a very wide public. But as I say again, the real challenge was selecting the piece from such a strong body of work.
I love how he simplified. He distilled down the things that elements in nature and observing the skin of an elephant, the bark of a tree, the play of lights and darks on leaves, and in this example, large palms too. It's such a dynamic piece, abstracted. But his messages and his personality come through in his work, and it has been a privilege to curate this show and to come to know a man that I never met.
Through
And
his art.
yes, and his down to earth, his authenticity, his genuine spirit, his caring. It just keeps resurfacing in his work. One thing I have heard again and again, you can see that and feel that raw honesty in his work. It comes through. And
In that sense, it was a real privilege. A
Yes.
further thing to add, of course, is a theme that Rodney was pursuing in his last phases, and that is remembrance of his younger self. The piece at hand is an unfinished work, and what it displays is a man remembering his younger self, not with a sense of remorse or regret, but more in a questioning spirit, and something that he allowed to come to fullness as much as possible. And, there's a sense of revelry as well as mystery in these works, which I think this artist fully embraced. That sense of the mystery in life. And I think, in short, this was one of the things that attracted him as an artist.
there's a celebration and joy that comes through in this piece, even though it's unfinished. And it illustrates how suddenly everything stopped for Rodney, but there's still that joy, and I take a sense of encouragement too. Mm-hmm. This is a happy piece. You can only imagine where it would, how it would look completed, but I don't need to see it completed to enjoy it.
Nor do I. It has a wonderful sense of potential lying within.
On several levels.
Indeed. And I think it's a fitting remembrance of this remarkable artist.
Smaller words. Yeah, absolutely. I meant to grab something. I don't eat. I know. That's so smart. I'm good at that was the wall I was on.
And then this apparently
So your favorite here. I know it's hard to do. I'm trying to remember.
Some people call the bottom. My husband, yeah.
name is Hirsch Klein, and Rodney and I were friends for 37 years. So I met him when I was in my early 20s. He was in his early 30s, and one of the themes in my friendship with Rodney was just my awareness of his kindness, and kindness grounded with a practicality. And I think we see that in his art here tonight. Themes very directly and explicitly of kindness and empathy. And he told me about this work that he was doing about a year ago when we went out for lunch. And he actually told me about the piece behind me right now about mirror neurons. And he said, Hirsch, I'm doing some stuff right now that I haven't done before, and I think you'll find it really interesting. And more than interesting, I find it inspiring and beautiful. But the art will speak for itself. So for those of you that are looking at this video clip, you'll see the beauty of his art and his particular ability to capture light. And I've known this throughout the years when I've seen Rodney's art. Some of it, maybe this isn't fair, but I'm not an artist or an art critic, but it used to remind me of Monet, and particularly of Monet's lilies. And in fact, Rodney had a show at the Victoria Airport many years ago that was of some of those lily pictures. And Rodney had an ability to capture the natural world and bring it into his art in a way that was just so illuminated and illuminating. And he, in more recent years, I think was painting landscapes, but also the inner landscape. And I think in particular this show, over the past year or so, this work, body of work, is really a representation of his own inner landscape, looking at values that were really important to him, of empathy and kindness and caring. And I can't think of many more just fully decent human beings that I've had the privilege of knowing in my life, and just the honor of being friends with. So I guess that's what I would say about Rodney.